On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, got a packed show for you guys. We did a whole review of National Signing Day for Mizzou. Tigers signing 17 guys, top 25 class. Kenny broke it all down. He has stories over on Rivals on Mizzou today. Go check those out. He has stories on every single commit and every single signee for Mizzou. So we talked about the Javion Hilson flip and getting him and how big that is for Mizzou's class, and just went into detail about a bunch of guys, did a whole long breakdown of everybody in the class. So definitely stick around for that. It was a great conversation. Kenny had a ton of expertise about all those guys. So good discussion there. Then we previewed the Kansas game, of course, just gave kind of our keys and what we're sort of expecting to see from Mizzou, what we think Mizzou can do to exploit Kansas in some key areas, and just how we think Sunday's game is going to go. It's going to be a fun one over in Como. Kansas fresh off a loss to Creighton. So great conversation there. And then, of course, we finished it up with quick hits. But like I said, packed show, great conversation about the signees and everyone that Mizzou brought into its 2025 recruiting class and signing class. So great stuff. Stick around for it. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, December 6th, and Mizzou's signing class, at least for the early signing period, has been finalized. Payton and Kenny, we had National Signing Day. We're recording this on Thursday, which means for us, National Signing Day was yesterday. On Wednesday, Mizzou signing 17 players. They have the number 21 ranked class in the country, according to Rivals. We had a little bit of a flip miss era to it, even though signing day has kind of moved up. So sadly, the flip miss theme, it isn't as big anymore, with it not being closer to Christmas. But that aside, Mizzou had a pretty fun signing day and a pretty busy day. First and foremost, I would get yourself over to Mizzou today, because if you want to read up on every single signee that Mizzou had, our own Kenny Van Doren wrote stories on every single player that Mizzou got. So go check all those out. You can really get an in-depth kind of look at all the guys Mizzou are getting. This would be a very long show if we went through all of them. So Kenny, credit to you. He's doing the pod. He worked for, seemed like 48 hours straight in the last 2 days. So
look at him. He looks exhausted.
Yeah, he just looks decrepit. And no, I'm just kidding, Kenny. You look great. But we are going to lean on you as our recruiting expert in this one, because like I said, Mizzou 17 guys, they got 4 of them here in the last 5 days in the month of December, headlined, of course, by Javion Hilson, the number 1 defensive end in America, flipping his commitment to Mizzou. He was at Florida State. I believe he was committed to Alabama at one point too. I think that's as good a place of any to start with signing day, Kenny. How the hell did that happen? And oh my God, what a massive ad for Mizzou. I mean, I was just dreaming last night of a Williams, Waneri, Javion Hilson defensive front, and Mizzou just eats everyone in the SEC alive. Talk about how that happened, how Mizzou ended up with the number 1 defensive end in the class.
Yeah, first off, thank you guys for letting me on the podcast today. It's an honor.
It's your job. So
I want, it is. It kind of takes me back a couple weeks ago. Mizzou parted ways with Joshua Lewis, who was a 4-star out of Louisiana, and it kind of made me think. There's other guys probably in this class that they see at the edge position that they probably want to go after. It felt like a mutual thing. Mizzou kind of pushed him out. He signed with Tulane, so he's going to stay a little bit closer to home, which seemed like a big thing for him. But Toby Hastrup, who's right down the street from me at Maid Creek in Houston, Texas, he told me straight up, he said Mizzou finished second but behind Oregon, and Mizzou ended up coming out just fine. They came out with a 5-star in Javion Hilson, who always wanted to play in the SEC. He told John Garcia that at Rivals.com. He confirmed it pretty early. This is the school he wants to go to, early in the sense that, he had his decision made before he was going to sign and announce his commitment on Wednesday on ESPN2, which is really good for Mizzou's brand to have that on there as well. But one of the biggest things he loved about Coach Brian Early, who came over from Houston for this past season, is that he coaches in cleats. He doesn't just teach you the drills, he runs through the drills with you. And it was just like he loves a young coach who's just going to go through everything with you. He's going to work out with you. I've been to a couple games this season too at Faurot Field at Memorial Stadium, and you can always point out Brian Early. I guess he's a kind of a smaller white guy, really built, bald guy, but he's just energetic. And I think that was one of the biggest things Javion spoke about, is that he loved him. I mean, he loved what he kind of brought to that position. Mizzou had a guy like that in Blake Baker, maybe not as energetic as Brian Early, but still kind of like that football guy. He wore cleats, he's always wearing the hoodies, doesn't care. He just loves football, loves grinding. And Javion Hilson, I mean, he's friends with Williams Nwaneri. They were excited to get him in and have them compete and just run off the edge together. So that's going to be huge for this defensive line room. And for those that don't know, he took an official visit this past weekend, and it was kind of just out of nowhere. Mizzou offered him late. I remember talking with the national recruiting director, Adam Gorney, and I was like, does Mizzou even have a chance here? It was just such a late offer. And yeah, if I kind of just put things together, realizing, Toby Hastrup is trending a little bit towards maybe some other schools. Oregon is definitely in the mix. It's his final visit. Maybe Mizzou is trying to make a run at him. They get him on campus instead of letting him go to Texas A&M for a return visit, and just impressed him. I mean, the biggest thing is he wanted to be in the SEC. That's why he committed to Nick Saban really early, and then ended up committing to Florida State, a school, in-state school for him. But kind of the recruiting class and the direction of that program started to fall this past year. So he backed off that commitment. And last thing I'll mention about him, he goes to Cocoa in Florida, and I've kind of knocked on the school just in the sense that it's become kind of like a flip central. There's a lot of great talent at that school, but some of these guys find what's best for them. Credit to them that maybe they think it's the best place early on, but they find what's best for them. You look at a guy like Javen Boggs, who's now going to go to Florida State, former Missouri commit.
Yeah, that's wild. That they just went in so late for him, a 5-star kid who, you took advantage of, like you said, his interest in the SEC. Payton, you hear all that. I mean, what does that say about Drinkwitz? I mean, and his ability, we've kind of praised his ability to recruit. I feel like, in the last couple of years, but man, to pull off a flip like this, I mean, it feels pretty huge in a class that had lost some guys, it was kind of maybe sputtering at certain points on the trail, but to pick it up right there in the final days, I mean, that's huge. I'm hyped. I'm hyped to see Javion Hilson in a Mizzou uniform.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best. This is when Drinkwitz is absolutely at his best. It's not on field. It's not really in the spring or anything. This time of year is absolutely when Drinkwitz is at his best. And I should have known better, with the whole Jeremiah Jones thing, flipping back and forth between Missouri and Nebraska. A couple weeks ago when he said, nope, I'm not flipping, which almost didn't happen again yesterday, but that's a different thing. I was kind of like, man, is this class going to kind of end on a sputter? Lamont Rogers, everyone on earth knew he was going to flip. But credit to Drink and the coaching staff in general, because 2 weeks ago, I thought the main thing we were going to be talking about is Lamont Rogers decommitting and how that kind of affects the class. But like you mentioned earlier, like Kenny said, I mean, they got a 5-star, on pretty much a crash course recruitment. So that's all world effort from this coaching staff, getting 3 commits in the days leading up. I mean, what a rock star finish to the class. It could have been a little better, but that's just the nature of recruiting. You're never, ever going to bat 1,000 on all your targets, no matter who you are. So yeah, I mean, I should know better. Everyone should know better. This is just what Drinkwitz does. And you got to give a lot of credit to the assistants he hires too. I mean, clearly an emphasis is put on guys that recruit their ass off. And I mean, that shone through again.
Yeah. Brian Early, protect that man at all costs. It sounds like he's got a little Jim Harbaugh in him with the cleats at practice, Kenny.
I got 2 things just to add on it too. For those that don't know, the offer came in November 20th, 2 weeks ago,
wild.
a little over 2 weeks ago, that Mizzou officially put the offer out there. And I think it's kind of one of those situations too, where Mizzou has done this a lot, talking to recruits. Sometimes schools will just offer kids just to offer them. Mizzou's big thing is like, if you're going to come visit, we'll give you an offer. We'll officially do that. And I think it's one of those things that you kind of agree, like, hey, will you come and give us a take? Will you give us a look? And we'll give you an offer here. But Javion Hilson, excluding Luther Burden, he is the highest ranked out-of-state commit in Mizzou history.
There you go. Setting records, drink. I love it. Yeah, I mean, what a final couple of days leading up to signing day. And Kenny, I'll segue off of that. I mean, he wasn't the only one in December. I mentioned there was 4 of them, including him. Talk about the other 3, because it's 3 skill guys. They got 2 running backs in Brendan Haygood. I saw he's ranked, I think, as the number 37 running back. Marquise Davis out of Ohio, the number 16 running back. I mean, that's 2, decent guys you pull in. I know Jamarian Morrow obviously flipped his commitment as a 4-star, and that was a guy they wanted and missed out on, but making up for it there. And then you add in Demarion Folks, the wide receiver, another 3-star player. I mean, just to kind of talk about those guys, how big of ads are they? I think it was great to see some skill guys get thrown into the mix there right at the end.
Yeah, Mizzou always wanted 2 running backs in this class. They've kind of targeted that in these past couple years and made some late runs there. And with Jamarion Morrow, he was trending away. He visited Georgia. I thought he was going to end up at Georgia. And then, talking with his dad again, Texas A&M just felt like the place. They love the stage. They love the atmosphere. They love what, he could do with that offense as an all-purpose back, because he's not just a running back. He's going to be a receiver as well. He's going to do a lot of things in an offense. So there was a lot, that Mizzou knew that probably they weren't going to keep Jamarion Morrow, and Georgia was still trying to, see what the temperature was. Same with Mizzou, and they loved Curtis Looper, but they wanted that big stage, and he earned it. I mean, he's coming from Memphis, and he's been through a lot. Loss of his cousin and just some tough things, and so he earned that opportunity. And just looking at the running backs, they made an attempt at Wayman Jordan at the JUCO ranks, but when they realized they could get Marquise Davis on campus this past weekend for the Arkansas game, they were in good shape. Marquise was someone that they were trying to go after the past couple months, get him on campus, talking with his coach, Max Stevens at Cleveland Heights. And I'll apologize now. When I first talked to his coach, I accidentally said New Heights, which is the podcast that the Kelseys.
Oh, that spoiled my trivia question. I was going to ask which player went to
Cleveland and people
Heights.
were responding to me that the Kelseys and Taylor Swift would all be fans of Mizzou because of Marquise, but he's an old school runner. He's not very talkative at all. He just puts his head down and runs. He was late to the high school football ranks. I learned this, that in Cleveland, there are a lot of travel football teams, and he played on one his freshman year. And then his sophomore year, he showed up late into the fall camp just because he was traveling the country, going to some games, or not games, excuse me, but just to some camps and just see some schools on a tour. And he got like 4 interceptions within 15 minutes. His coach said as good as he is on offense, he's even better on defense. He just has like all these skill sets to play both ways, but he's going to be a running back. He's going to put his head down and hit someone. And he's just an old school runner. And I think Mizzou finally got him, to flip from Kentucky, getting him on campus. That one surprised me a little bit just because it was out of nowhere. I think a lot of people were prepared that it was going to happen. It just dropped on everyone late before the early signing period. With Brendan Haygood, he has just had a meteoric rise over these past couple of weeks. Ever since he was offered in October, I felt like there was something there with Mizzou. Curtis Looper is building something with him, a relationship. He recruits DFW like no one's business. He's had those connections to TCU and schools in that area. And he just went into DFW, found him. He was committed to Boise State. And I think it was pretty evident when he backed off his pledge to Boise State during his OV that he was going to end up at Mizzou over Texas Tech. They're going to get a guy that is great in the wide zone, another guy that's pretty quiet, leads by just example of what he does in the field, and someone that's a little bit smaller, but he's the same size as Jamarion Morrow. That's something I kept pointing to. I think Jamarion has 10 pounds on him, and I think that's the only difference. And Brendan Haygood might be even bigger than what it says on his profiles, but he's a guy that's going to be your wide zone runner, and Marquise Davis is going to put his head down and hit people. And so it's a good combo of running backs, very similar kind of playing styles and similar personalities, but 2 guys that are going to be contributors here in the future. Demarion Folks, I had no idea who he was until I confirmed that he was going to be on that official visit. He was a Pittsburgh commit, but I think getting in an SEC campus, getting that offer, was everything. They went to visit him. Jacob Peeler did a couple weeks ago, I think almost a month ago now. They've been keeping tabs on him at the beginning of the season. And one of the best things that I got out of his coach was his coach said something of the lines of, he's the best punt returner he's ever seen. And Stephon Diggs went to the same high school. He coached Stephon Diggs. He watched Stephon Diggs play. I don't think a lot of people think of Stephon Diggs as this great punt returner, but he probably was, back when he was in Maryland and in his high school days. He has SEC level speed. His coach kept telling these coaches that when they would come in and visit him, and they just didn't believe him. He's severely underrated in my eyes. The guy just gets open. These teams that they were playing in the Baltimore area and Maryland, they wouldn't punt to him. They would quick punt. Fahim Deline, who's an all-American safety, would have to drop back on some of these and catch him just because no one wanted to give him the ball. No one wanted to put the ball in his hands. He's going to enroll in the summer, but I think he's definitely a guy that could probably just do something on special teams, if not as a punt returner, which is something Mizzou will probably definitely look at him for, maybe at a gunner position just to kind of get him up to speed. But I think there's a lot of speed within Demarion folks.
I was going to say punt returner. That's Mizzou needs one of those. We haven't had a consistent punt returner in this program for years. I mean, you couldn't even get Luther Burden going, but maybe this kid can be speedy enough that it clicks into gear for him. So yeah, that's exciting. I mean, 3 just good new additions. It's nice to see 3 skill guys, along with Hilson, of course, coming in. And what a way to end the class. I think, Payton, I'll kick it to you. We'll give Kenny a break for a second. We just made him do 3 in-depth breakdowns. You look back at this class, and we've kind of kept up with it, sort of all summer into the fall. Obviously, it comes together over the whole year. Who's a guy when you look back, and I want to ask both of you about Zoller, so I'm taking him off the list. You can't say him. But when you look back at this class, just someone you remember, oh yeah, Mizzou's signing this guy. I'm excited to watch him and see how he develops. Payton, for you, who's a couple you're kind of looking at?
Definitely Oleg Bode, Donovan Oleg Bode. I mean, that was kind of one where up until a few days until his commitment, like, people weren't even really thinking he actually would go to Mizzou. And then when he did commit, a lot of people were scared that he'd be a flip candidate. He wound up being, there was never really any sort of buzz that he was even looking to flip, as far as I know. Javen Boggs, of course, he wound up. Go ahead.
He did like take a visit to Washington, and Washington tried, but he never really entertained it. I think he went on the visit, just saw the campus, but he was pretty locked in. Yeah,
and then I mean, with the loss of Boggs too, I mean, his commitment even became even more important. Obviously, they wound up getting Folks right at the end there, but Oleg Bode, I mean, is he a top 100 guy on Rivals? I don't think he is. But Oleg Bode.
He's top 50.
Top 50.
Top 50. Wow.
46.
Man, I mean, do you remember our freshman year when JJ Hester was the top commit in the class? Yeah, that's kind of how far this class is, the recruiting at Mizzou has come. So Oleg Bode is definitely one. Jack Lang is another, especially without Lamont Rogers. I know Kenny has talked to Jack Lang a ton. I mean, once Lang committed to Mizzou, he also, I mean, did he ever even take another visit after that, anywhere else? He's been locked in, just a solid 4-star guy, consensus 4-star even. That's a guy you absolutely want to hang on to. 103 in Rivals national rankings, number 1 in the state, locked down the borders. That's an all-around just rock solid commit. So I definitely, and there's more, obviously, guys like Dante McClellan, Jason Dowell, those guys have been committed forever. People are pretty high on Sean Terry. But definitely when I think of 2 of kind of the quote unquote old guard of this class, it would be Oleg Bode and Lang.
Yeah, those 2 were great ads, for sure. And Kenny, I want to hit you with this because I want to hear from both of you. You're kind of most maybe underrated member of this class. But Kenny, I'm going to hit you with mine first because I want your expert opinion. Because I was watching, I loved what Mizzou did, by the way, with the announcements where they had the coaches kind of break down their games. Heard a lot of the same stuff, which was kind of funny, but they probably have to dumb it down for us lay people, so that makes sense. But I want to ask you, from listening to that, I got 2 names that I was kind of falling in love with, and it's Jason Dowell. Payton mentioned him. the DT from Belleville, Illinois, state wrestling champ. I loved that from a DT. Seemed like he had a bit of a personality. And then the other guy I'm super intrigued with when we talk like an underrated member, only a 3-star on Rivals. And another guy who was kind of, I think he was September 30th, he committed. Dakota Terrell, he's listed as an athlete. I believe he's going to play tight end at Mizzou. 6'9". I mean, that is a fun build that you can kind of work with there. What are your thoughts on the two of them? And then maybe for yourself, who's your most underrated member of this class? And Payton, you should give yours as well.
Yeah, I think with Jason Dowell, it's like one of those things that you're not just getting a player, you're getting a person. Like I would bet the house that he's a captain. If he remains, in this program, if he develops in this program in 3 to 4 years, I think he's going to have a seat on his jersey. Talking to these coaches, he's best friends with Nicholas Deloach. He has friends. He has a friend on the track team as well. He knows a lot of people at Mizzou. He wanted to go to Mizzou. Mizzou was the second team to offer him, I believe, behind Iowa. So it was that first SEC offer, and it just made all the sense in the world. He was a committed guy. He ended up taking a visit to Indiana. But what Mizzou is getting in him is like a person as well. They call him a gentle giant. They said as ferocious as he is on the field, you can watch some of it. He played at a lower level in Illinois, but he's just massive. He's like 295, 6'4". The guy was just bulldozing through people, but off the field he's very religious, deep in his faith, and just loves everybody. That was probably my favorite story I got to write about was him. And there was a teammate he had whose mother passed away, and that teammate got to play in a playoff game and scored a touchdown. And he's a smaller guy, bigger guy still at the same time. He's a defensive tackle, a sophomore, and the first guy that grabbed him on the sideline was Jason. There's a good photo in that story, a good video of it. It's just Jason is just a awesome teammate, and he's a wrestler as well. He's going to stay back, be in a summer enrollee, but finish out his wrestling career. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited about there. Al Davis loves him. It seems like they are just perfect together. So I definitely like that one. And with Dakota too, it's like one of those things that I can promise you that I don't think he's going to play his freshman season. He was late on the scene in football his junior year. His coach at Oklahoma, or in Oklahoma at Pensacola, made him a highlight reel because they were like, okay, you're getting basketball offers, but you are ridiculous on the football field. He's playing edge at 6'8". He's playing in the secondary at 6'8". I mean, he was just doing all these things. Of course, high school level, not everyone is, the same level of talent, but he had just all these intangibles, and he was catching balls over people because he's just so much bigger than them. So it's going to take a little bit of time just building that frame. Durham Cato loved him, loved like the potential. They called him like a monster. Some of his coaches did, just because they have no idea what the ceiling is going to be, because it can be just so high just because of how big he is. And so if they can put a lot of weight into him, get him up to speed, he's another quiet guy, but definitely someone that they love in that tight end room. And then they were trying to get another tight end, like Payton mentioned, Jeremiah Jones, who said he wasn't going to flip. He said, I'm flip. And then he deleted the tweets and things were trending his way, but Nebraska got him. But that would have been 3 consecutive classes with 2 tight ends. So there's definitely a rhythm that Mizzou has at that position.
6'9" is insane. 6'9" playing safety. Can you imagine trying to throw over that? That sounds ridiculous.
He did kick returns and punt returns too. That's not going to happen at the college level, but they had him doing everything.
Yeah, that's ludicrous.
One guy that kind of interests me, just pending on if his measurements are right on Rivals, is Mark Manfred. Because Kenny, is he going to play cornerback?
Yeah, he was a 2A guy in high school.
Okay. So if he plays cornerback, I mean, a 6'3" tall corners, I think, are so intriguing. If you can get them to work out, I mean, just in the SEC in particular, where you just have all these crazy athletes running around at receiver, having someone with that kind of size can make a huge difference. He's only 180, so he's probably not a guy you'd expect to play anytime really soon, but if he can fill out his frame, they can coach him up. I think that's just the measurements alone are intriguing for Mark Manfred.
Yeah.
He has all the confidence in the world too. He gave me a good quote. He was like, I'm the only corner in this class for a reason. So he was very excited about getting on campus early, and he feels like he's very underrated. His coach just called him a straight up dog. So everyone's pretty excited about Mark.
As your dog just made
Bubba just bulldozed into me.
Bubba wants on the team. He should have been a signee. That I like that too, though. I like swagger out of corners. I think you want guys with a little cockiness to them. That's a position that you need, confidence to play. All right. Okay. You got anything?
Yeah, I'll do mine.
Yeah.
I'll just do one guy, and it's Henry Fanuku. Payton and I had a good conversation about it. I think he kind of flew under the radar with Lamont and Jack Lang. He's a 4-star offensive guard. He loves Brandon Jones. A good story here. He wasn't even supposed to visit Mizzou. He didn't want to. In June, he was kind of burnt out in the recruiting process. He took a bunch of visits in a row. The offensive coordinator there in Fort Worth said, "Hey, they made a spot for you to come up there. They're going to take the time out. You take the time out and go." And then that Sunday or Monday, he commits without even telling his coaches. They made an agreement to talk about it, talk through the things before you end up committing. And he just found it to be the best place for him. And I think that was one of the cool things. He loves Coach Jones. He's originally from Ghana. So knowing that there are people with African heritage on the team and from those countries meant a lot to him. He found comfortability in that. And it was his junior season. He sat down and he realized, this is what I want to do. I want to play college football. I want to get to that next level. So they took some time out, got 5 top guys in the state, watched their film, realized what he needed to do. And then his coach said it's like a light switched on. He just started whooping a whole lot of ass. And that was just my favorite quote I got from any coach in the past 2 weeks. I think everyone should be pretty excited about Henry Fanuka at the guard position. Could probably put on a little bit of weight, but he's coming in ready to play, and he's going to be an early enrollee.
Love it. I love it. This is just the best part is when all these guys, you have so much hope. And I I hope they all work out. That's a great story. Committing and doing all that after you initially don't want to visit. I mean, good that it worked out for him, and hopefully it does that for Mizzou too. All right, last thing. It obviously can't all be perfect. Mizzou does finish with the 17 commits, a top 25 class. But Kenny, when you look forward, we obviously have the late signing period that comes up in February. And Payton, feel free to throw any thoughts in this as well. Where does Mizzou maybe need to turn, whether it's even in the portal as well, based on, this class? Obviously who you land probably influences who you get in the portal, but just what are kind of your expectations now, maybe at certain positions or with certain guys going forward as Mizzou approaches the rest of the offseason following this, I would say, successful signing day?
You'll see walk-ons. You'll see, special teamers that'll trickle in as well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think one of the things they might just keep looking at is a safety and offensive tackle. They did offer Chasten Brown, who's out of Georgia. He was a UCF commit before Gus Malzahn left for Florida State. He told me he's really interested in Georgia Tech, but he still got that offer from Mizzou. He's hearing them out. But he's not going to sign until February. So he has some time to take some visits, see some schools in those January windows. Even at the safety position, they whiffed on a bunch of guys. Even on signing day, I thought they were going to flip Javion Butts from UNC, Julian Horton, who they actually never officially offered, I don't think. He never announced one, but he took an official visit with Butts, another UNC guy. He ended up signing with West Virginia, so there were some guys there. But even before that, Ryland Dillard-Allen at Washington, Zach Harden, who was committed to Minnesota, and Byron Baldwin, who ended up going right back to Indiana after decommitting. So there was a lot of guys that they were after at the safety position after Dylan Williams backed off and went to Kentucky to pair with Charles Bass out of East St. Louis, who's an early enrollee. So that's good. But I think those are two positions, offensive tackle and safety, they might keep going after. And I think that'll just kind of heighten what they need in the transfer portal is a safety, someone who is experienced. And I think they were going to go after an experienced safety no matter what, but this also just kind of shows you that there's not much to develop right behind you. And Trajan Greco could probably make that step forward, but you need to get an experienced safety, someone who had success at his previous school.
I completely agree, pretty much. You always want to build up the trenches on the offensive side of the ball. I think they're in a good spot with that. Lamont would have been a real, this is a elite level, O-line recruiting class, but they definitely still would want to get another one of those. The secondary in general, I think, just always could use reinforcements. I thought it was the true weakness of the team this year, and you're losing so many safeties. They need a lot there. They need bodies at a certain point. I don't think it's a huge, I don't think that the portal recruiting and high school recruiting have to go hand in hand, patch holes with your portal recruiting more so, I'd say, than high school recruiting. But I do agree that safety definitely needs to be the big one. O-line would also be a big one. And I think you could never have too many corners. So I'd keep looking there.
Yeah, DBs is where I want to see them go. Transfer portal opens on Monday, December 9th. We're going to see, obviously, Mizzou, you never know who might enter as well and depart. Hopefully it's not too many. But yeah, I think DB is really where we want to see them make some strides in terms of, like Payton said, patching holes. But they got some good long-term additions. Yeah, I'm loving this class. I'm excited for a lot of these guys. We didn't even talk about Matt Zollers. I mean, man, gets hurt. Obviously a bummer for him. We didn't get to, just retweet Matt Zoller's highlights consistently this year. But I mean, I know they talked about him in even his little video. He was kind of a guy who helped keep this whole class together. Good to see a quarterback who's that elite, not waver. So that'll be a fun, kind of long-term add too. And we'll have some more quarterback talk in quick hits too. That's going to be a topic of discussion, I think, as this offseason trundles on for Mizzou football. But yeah, there you go. 17 players, number 21 class in the country. Thank you to our Mr. Great Recruiting Expert, Kenny. Well done. Go over to Rivals and read his stuff. We're going to preview the KU game in a second, but I think we wanted to touch on this first, staying on the football side of things. It's the news we were all expecting that happened this week that we just want to touch on. Mr. LB3, Luther Burden III, has played his final game in a Mizzou jersey. Very sad. I've been watching endless minutes of Luther Burden highlights of his time at Mizzou already. We all knew this was coming, but I think the interesting thing that came out of this, he declared for the NFL draft, of course, is he is not going to play in whatever bowl game Mizzou gets. And I think we all have kind of the same take here, but Payton, you said it to us off air, and I thought you put it really well, because that's obviously a debate with all kinds of players, whether it's, guys who are entering the draft, just finishing up, school, don't want to play for whatever reason. But I think you had a good explanation for why it's maybe a good thing to just let Luther go off, even if it means, we don't get one more game with him in a Mizzou jersey. Obviously it's a bummer, but it was also expected.
Yeah, it's not silly to me to opt out when you're Luther Burden III, when you're like a surefire first rounder. That really, it's more important for Missouri to get its most important recruit in school history to the draft completely healthy, like with no underlying concerns or anything. I don't even think if Luther Burden said, I want to play in the bowl game, Drink would have let him. I think Drink realizes the most important thing for Mizzou as in general is showing that a 5-star that decommitted from Oklahoma, spurned Georgia and Alabama, came to Mizzou, contributed right away, became a national, like a national star. Like everyone knows who Luther Burden is that follows the sport. And can get him to the draft and healthy and be a first-round pick. That is way more important than like 5 catches for 83 yards and 2 touchdowns maybe against Iowa in the Music City Bowl. There's no other way to frame it. I think bowl opt-outs are really silly when it's like someone that's going to be a day 3 pick or an undrafted guy. You might as well just play in the game if you're going in that round range. Someone like Luther Burden III, it does not bother me at all that he opts out. There was nothing more he could have really given to the university. He gave them pretty much everything they could have hoped for. It was a very, very successful tenure, I'd say. They won 20 games in 2 years with him. He took the university to new heights. If Mizzou winds up being a perennial, like 8-9 win program that pops into the playoff every so often, which I think is like what you kind of hope the goal is for Mizzou, Luther Burden III's commitment is going to be like the first thing that's brought up when people analyze how Mizzou got to that point. So no reason for him to play in the bowl game. I'm pretty happy he didn't play in the bowl game. I think it would have been really silly.
I got 2 things, just, talking about Luther's time there. Something that always stuck with me, over the past couple years is that when in one of his first press conferences, someone asked him, like, what do you want this season? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And he said, like, the Heisman. And I was, thinking, like, he's a confident guy in this sense, but I think he's just grown so much as a person that some people just don't notice. He became such a huge, like, team guy. There were instances, earlier this year where, Drink had to get in his face, over something. He had some flags where he pulled a guy's mouth guard off of his grill or anything like that. But he was just a guy that just grew so much. And I don't think he reached all of the goals that he set for himself, things that he wanted to accomplish, get the Blitnikoff this year, make it to the playoff and go deep into the postseason. But he did change Mizzou, like, so much for the better. He not even just like, what he accomplished on the field, but just what the spotlight brought to the school. Talking to recruits, they always say Luther Burden's name. It's just that name is going to stick with them when they're thinking about these schools. It's just changed for the better. And last thing I'll mention too, if you're looking on our YouTube, you can see MIZ Chris posted the chips.
Yeah, he made his own chips. That's the biggest achievement.
And the chips will be no more. Once he signs his NFL contract and moves on to the NFL, the chips will be no more.
Rip the chips. I still have a bag. I kept a bag.
Grab a bag. Better collect them.
Yeah, I have a bag as an antique. I'm looking at it on my shelf right over there. Yeah, transformative is the best word I can use to describe his time. I mean, it was a transformative commitment. It was a transformative time. He has done so much to the program that I think the effects are going to be seen far beyond his time there. Obviously, he did a lot for them. Payton mentioned the 20 wins, but I think in terms of, like, if it continues to work and go on the upward trajectory it's going with Drinkwitz, I mean, Luther Burden deserves an enormous amount of credit for that. And yeah, I think he's had a larger effect on a single university than I think a lot of players have in the last few years in college football. It's just amazing, and I think we will thank him forever for that. I'm so excited to watch him in the pros. And my last thing, which is a theme that I'm going to continue to make until April, whenever the draft is. What team does Luther Burden end up on, in your guys' thoughts, as of December 5th? If you need some help, I was looking at Tankathon earlier. If you want to know what team's currently picking where in the current NFL standings, I can tell you. But give me a team, each of you. Nothing?
I want to say, like, a team that I'm going to say the Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals. I think he'll go reunite with his Cotton Bowl champion teammate, Darius Robinson. I think Luther will thrive in, like, an offense that doesn't, like, take a lot of deep shots and just gets him the ball and lets him create. I think the Cardinals are a perfect spot for that. They don't throw deep too much. They are very intermediate and short. I think they're in the range at 6-6. I think they're in the perfect range for where Luther could go. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals.
They're picking 18th right now, by the way.
Yeah, and back-to-back seasons of first-round wide receivers.
Yeah,
I was thinking in that range too, but I'm going to go Tampa Bay. He's played in that stadium before. I think it's good to get him with a quarterback and a wide receiver room that has experienced guys with, like, Baker Mayfield. Might be throwing the ball a little bit further than that Cardinals offense, but he gets to be around Mike Evans possibly and some other experienced wideouts. So I think that would be a pretty cool landing spot for him.
They pick 16th currently. They're also 6-6. I like the team sandwiched in between them too right now in Tankathon, the Los Angeles Rams, potentially. Team up with McVay. McVay just does some wild stuff with him in that offense. That could be kind of intriguing, but they don't really need a receiver, so they probably wouldn't do that, I guess, the more I think about it. The mock I saw from The Athletic the other day had him at 13 to Dallas. That was interesting. Could play in the stadium he won the Cotton Bowl in. That would be very, very full circle. I saw that one. I had a crazy thought the other day too, after watching him on Sunday. What about Carolina if he really goes high? They team him up with Bryce Young.
That was a team that kept popping up for, like, a while. Like last year even. Like, everyone just kept saying, oh, he's going to go, like, 3 to Carolina.
The Panthers?
He's not going to go that high.
Probably won't.
I don't think. And I want him to go to not Carolina.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, we'll keep monitoring it. I'll keep asking routinely. Obviously, we still see what the draft order and all that stuff is, but that's the fun we'll have with Luther. Thank
Yeah,
you
my
for
final
everything
thing I
on the
just want to
program.
mention is that before Thanksgiving, Luther Burden had the most recent win in Jerry World than the Cowboys.
It's a damn good point. It's a damn good point. Yeah, thank you for everything, Luther. It was quite the ride. I can't believe it's already here that we're in his declaring for the draft.
Feels like just
tweet.
yesterday he had 2 touchdowns against Louisiana Tech.
Yeah,
One of which was on the worst play call ever.
but it's Luther. Just throw it to him. Remember Horn to Burden? Shout out that. All right. Let's move on because we got some hoops. We're gonna give Kenny a rest because he has been just recruiting nonstop, and while he was doing damn good work finding out the latest and greatest about Mizzou's class, Payton and I were watching basketball, specifically the ACC SEC challenge, where Mizzou did their job. The SEC absolutely dominated the ACC, by the way, in this. I think the only 2 losers, ironically, were the 2 highest ranked SEC teams, Auburn and Kentucky. They both lost. Every other SEC team won, including Mizzou, which beat Cal 98-93 on Tuesday night. This was the first Power 5 win for Mizzou since November 28th, 2023, I believe. If my memory
Was
is
that
correct.
Pitt?
It was Pitt at
Oh,
Pitt.
man.
They did
Another
play
ACC.
Wichita State after that and beat them, but that technically doesn't count because they're in the American. So
Yeah.
yeah. So Mizzou gets a Power 5 win. They beat Dennis Gates' alma mater, 93-98 in Payton. Obviously, we're a while after the game, so we'll just do a few takeaways, and then we're going to preview Kansas. First of all, Mizzou, at one point in this game, down 18, fought all the way back, ended up winning this game by 5, nearly scored 100 again. What did you make of that? Because it got ugly at portions of that first half, and what stood out to you watching that kind of comeback and seeing Mizzou sort of claw their way back in and then take the lead?
I was pretty much I was looking up Dennis Gates' buyout during that first half. I'm not gonna lie, man. That was the ugliest. I mean, it was not even the first half. The last 4 minutes of that first half were some of the worst basketball I have ever seen. Mizzou just got. It was almost like a movie montage of like when a team gets really hot against an overmatched squad. That's what Cal was doing at the end of the first half. It was so bad. I mean, it was 50. They gave up 51 points in the first half. I mean, against a bad Cal team. Well, let me preface that. Like a lower rated Cal team, not a straight up bad Cal team, but like not a straight up good Cal team.
Right.
But credit to this Mizzou team. I mean, there's going to be a lot of comparisons drawn to last season's Minnesota win. I think this is a bit different because it's clear they're more talented. And it wasn't like in that Minnesota game, Minnesota did not try to score the last 10 minutes of the game. They tried to just burn the clock out. California was keeping their foot on the gas. They made Mizzou work hard for this one. But man, I think Dennis Gates finally found a rotation flow that kind of worked in the second half. Ant Robinson, man, he had the first 9 points of the game. I don't know what this guy did in the offseason. If the season ended right now, he'd be an all SEC player. That is how good.
One of my questions was going to be, what's Anthony Robinson's ceiling this year? Because I'm really struggling to not immensely overreact to this.
29 points, 8 for 11 from the field, 13 for, he's getting to the line like crazy. 6 assists. Look, again, he still is a little too wild at times. He still has that fouling issue. But you have to take that with what he's been so far. That second half, I think the big story to me is just Dennis tightened up the rotation. You didn't see any of Jacob Cruz, who played 6 minutes and was a minus 18. You didn't see a lot of mixing and it was just Ant Robinson, Tamar Bates when he wasn't in foul trouble, and Mark Mitchell played the entire second half. He just let those 3 go, and he was getting rewarded for it. Josh Gray, I thought, played really, really well, and then he got in foul trouble, and Dennis, I think, threw in Payton Marshall, just thinking okay, if I can just survive these minutes with Payton Marshall, But you know what? Payton Marshall played exceptionally well. I mean, like really gave them like huge, like just grown man minutes. That was super encouraging. He looked like you can tell he's still like a freshman out there. He doesn't quite have his footing. He made all three of his shots and they were kind of funny looking at times.
One of them, he just powered the ball over a couple people.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
it looked like a catapult. Like it just kind of sprung up and went in the hoop.
When you have the size that Payton Marshall has, you can get away with a lot of things. He got a couple steals for them.
11 minutes, by the way.
He had an assist. He facilitated. Mizzou shot 22 of 26 from the field in the second half. And these were good shots they were working into. I mean, like they were getting to the rim. They only took 3 3-point attempts in the second half. And it like without Caleb Grill, that might have to be the formula. They got to the line for 38 shots. I mean, it was an all-world second half for them. I really liked what I saw from the rotations in the second half. I think Dennis should like take the lessons he learned from this game. I think you roll with like Mark Mitchell, Tamar, and Ant being like the three that play like 30, like close to 30 minutes a night. And then you just kind of mix and match what you need around them. You know, sometimes you'll need Aiden Shaw to come in and be like that ferocious defender. You know, Aiden Shaw didn't fill up the box score in this game, 3 rebounds, 2 points. But you know when he's on the floor, like he's always like high energy, like just flying around, making big defensive plays. He blocked a 3-pointer, like really emphatically. Sometimes you'll need Marquez Warwick to come in and just give you a little bit of scoring off the bench. That was encouraging to see from him. Tony Perkins still looks bad to me, but he played a little better down the stretch. I think Dennis has the formula. It's just a matter of will he follow it now? Because I think you saw the blueprint to success in that second half, and now it's just a matter of replicating it.
Kenny saw a lot of dunks. That was Kenny's takeaway. They went 6 for 6 on dunks.
Yeah, I listened to the game on mute when I was writing my stories, and I kept looking up, and I saw like Payton Marshall, put one down. I think Tamar Bates had one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Every time I looked up,
Mark Mitchell had a lot of them.
Yeah, Mark Mitchell had a really good one.
Every time I looked up, I saw someone's hands on the rim.
Payton, you hit on pretty much everything. The two things like I'll double down. Marquez Warwick is really, really good. A really, really good guy to have. I think to me, it's sort of like a Walmart version of what DeAndre Golston gave you, because he's not probably a starter 25 plus minutes guy, but you can chuck him in and he can get you, 12 points. I guess he did play 25 minutes. But he can get you 12 points off the bench and you can find the time. And like you said, you talked about formula. He found big minutes for the guys he needed to find big minutes for, but it still felt like played a good amount of guys in the way that he kind of wants to. But like you said, it wasn't wasteful with minutes. There weren't guys that felt like they should be out there for too long. He didn't take Payton Marshall out of the game too early. He didn't leave, I felt like, very many people in too long. Josh Gray was solid in this game. I think Mark Mitchell has found the footing that we needed him to find. I thought that Memphis game, it just looked like, you were kind of like, this guy just hasn't really
he was
settled
not good
yet.
in the first half either, but
yeah,
he started playing more like he started just playing more around the rim, I thought, and just
he's
found
sort
his
of
finishing touch.
He's sort of that microwave, but not like a shooter. It's just once he gets comfortable, it's really hard to stop. He can finish with both hands around the rim. I think he's really, really good. And then, yeah, I mean, man, Ant Robinson, I don't know. I'm going to get, I do this. I'm an overreactor. The last game that someone plays, I'm going to be, overreactive to. But man, I mean, the kid has really, really found something. I think Mizzou has something really special with him. I think he's going to be a really good player. And like you said, Payton, like this team is, I think, number 3 in the country in free throw attempts per game. They only took 9 threes. Like, we know how fast Dennis likes to play, but you're right. I think the longer you're without Grill, there are other guys who can shoot on this team, but like, if the formula is just get to the rim and then it's either A, draw fouls and get to the free throw line, or B, you get a paint touch and someone's open on a kick out. They've kind of learned how to win with either formula, and that to me is a good thing. So there just feels like there's a couple ways this team can beat people offensively, and that's exciting. So I liked what I saw. Again, you don't want to overreact too much to Cal, but it's a good win. It's a Power 5 win, and Missouri kind of needed one of those given how weak its schedule has been to start the season. And now you move forward and you ramp up the competition a little bit because it's the border war up next. Mizzou's going to play Kansas on Sunday afternoon. I forgot to write the time down. I think it's at like 4. No, it's not. It's at noon. It's at noon.
Yeah.
Sorry, noon on Sunday. High noon for the border war. And damn it, this Kansas team's going to come in angry because they just lost to Creighton on the road. They got the court stormed on them and are now going to go into Mizzou Arena. And I think we kind of just each brought a point to talk about with this game. Kenny, I'll start with you because it's on that note. Man, I get so torn with these because when something like this happens, you're on the one hand like, all right, someone exposed some vulnerabilities on Kansas, but what kind of Kansas team are you going to get here now coming off a loss to Creighton? That's kind of, I know, what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you can't compare it to another game this season because Kansas lost its first game this past week, and its most previous one against Creighton on the road. And you're going into another road environment against a team that hates you more than probably anyone in the country. So it's going to be even a tougher environment. But I mean, how are they going to respond? How are the Jayhawks going to respond in this one? And I think it's just one of those things that you just have to pretend like it's the same team, like it's the team that just coming in at 8-0. I think that's one of my biggest things that I've been thinking about is that you look at this team that's played on the road once this year and they've lost that game. They got the court stormed on them. They're going to come in probably with an extra edge. They don't want to lose this game. This is the game they probably want to win the most, the one that they're playing up the most. And so how do you respond in that regard? And I'm not the biggest fan of like nameless, faceless opponents, just because I think if you get into the atmosphere and take in the atmosphere and absorb it and absorb who you're playing against, I think you're going to even be better. So I think this is one of those things where just don't let the past kind of dictate how you think like this team will play, and just play your own game. I mean, Payton's going to get into a good point about Hunter Dickinson here in a second, and I think that's one of the biggest things you can do.
Yeah, Payton, what are you thinking with this game specifically? I mean, I think it's one of those things where even if Missouri doesn't win, there is stuff you can do to maybe help you in terms of confidence and stuff like that. But specifically with Kansas, what are you looking for in terms of Missouri, doing to try and slow this team down or maybe, expose them a little bit?
I completely agree with Kenny. I think nameless, faceless opponent in a rivalry game like this is a total misstep.
It's bull.
Yeah, I think you need to I don't know how you do it. Dennis needs to get he needs to get Norm Stewart to come in and talk to these guys about how insane this rivalry used to be. And look, there's a little something I think also. Tamar Bates and Mark Mitchell are from Kansas City. They're KCK guys. So they know a little bit, at least, of the energy of this rivalry. I thought Tamar Bates, honestly, last year played with a whole ton of good emotion in this game. He was fired up after that 3-pointer he hit that gave Mizzou a big lead. So I think they need that type of energy in this one as well. It sucks that Caleb Grill is not going to be out there more likely than not, because I think he's the guy that could bring that as well. One thing just on the court to look at is, Knowlton, you discussed this off air. Kansas does not get to the line at all. I think what was the number? 351st in the nation at getting to the free throw line.
In free throw attempts.
That'll benefit Missouri a lot, I think, because Missouri has played such a frantic, aggressive style of defense that clearly Kansas, they don't like to play that physical, clearly. I mean, they're not getting to the line at all. One player I think Mizzou really needs to be physical with, just try and frustrate, throw off their game, is Hunter Dickinson. Now, Hunter Dickinson, everyone knows, fantastic player when he's playing his game. He's averaging 14.5 and 9 this year, which honestly is a little below what I feel like I'm used to from him. 65% from the line, though. And we've seen it, it's happened a lot with him. If you play physical with him, if you frustrate him, he will play real dumb real fast. Duke did it like against him when Duke was trying to get on a run against Kansas. They really kind of threw Hunter Dickinson off his game in a stretch. I mean, Hunter Dickinson was throwing up wild shots, playing dumb ISO ball. It was not good. Like, Hunter Dickinson is someone that you can definitely get to, I think. And Josh Gray and Peyton Marshall, like, they're not the players that Hunter Dickinson is, but they can match up with him size-wise. And those dudes are big physical loads. I would not be shocked if Dennis goes out there and goes, you know what? You guys, between you two, have 10 fouls. Ration them accordingly. Like, go out there and be physical with Hunter Dickinson. Do not let him scare or intimidate you and play his game, because if he does, Missouri will have no chance in this game. But if they can force him into taking some bad shots, hell, put him on the line a bunch. You shoot 6 on the line. If you're throwing on the charity stripe, but he's thrown off his game and can't really impact it, I think that's a big win for Missouri.
I will admit, I have, recording this on Thursday. The Kansas Creighton game was last night. I have not had a chance to watch the highlights, so I admit I'm doing some box score watching here. But I actually am going to pull, Kenny, which I hope Mizzou doesn't do, but I'm going to pull some things from this loss that I just thought were interesting, in terms of what I want to see from Mizzou. Man, DeJuan Harris, Kansas's guard, who of course Missouri fans will know real, real well. Of course, also if you're a Rockbridge Bruin fan. He was 6 for 21 against Creighton. That is not a formula for Kansas to win games. I think if Missouri is forcing DeJuan Harris to take 20 shots in a game, that is absolutely a way you can beat them. There are other guys. I mean, Kansas, they don't get to the line. They're really skilled. They have Harris, Zeke Mayo, that's a little bit of a sore spot for Mizzou. That would have been a nice get in the portal. Goes to Kansas. AJ Storr from Wisconsin's like a 40% free throw shooter. They added Rylan Griffin, who's like a 6'6" guard from Alabama. They have a lot of really good guard play, but I think if DeJuan Harris is the one taking all the shots and he's not being the facilitator, he's averaging 6 assists per game. That guy absolutely makes their offense go. He's experienced. He's the one who's going to dish to guys like Mayo, Storr, Griffin. Mayo and Storr can do a lot of scoring on their own in isolation. I think if you're forcing Harris to take a lot of those shots and you are keeping the ball in his hands, preventing him from creating, I think that's really another avenue you can exploit. Weirdly, Creighton turned the ball over a lot against Kansas and still managed to win, which tells me like Kansas didn't do a super great job of taking advantage of giveaways. So I think if Mizzou keeps things clean, that can really help them. Again, this is me probably getting my hopes a little bit too high, but to me, there's just things you can do. And Creighton's a good basketball team, so don't, get me wrong there. But to me, there's just things you can do to look good in this game, and it's frustrate Hunter Dickinson. It's keep the ball, prevent DeJuan Harris from creating for others. Rylan Griffin didn't play in this game. He's one of their best 3-point shooters for Kansas. I think if you're preventing him from getting open looks, that's big. So yeah, just keeping the ball. I mean, Hunter Dickinson cannot attempt 4 field. If he attempts 4 field goals against Mizzou, Mizzou absolutely can win this game. I mean, if you're walling him out of the game that much, and Creighton has a good big and Ryan Kalkbrenner to do that, like Payton said, Mizzou's version of that is just let Josh Gray and Peyton Marshall just eat him alive and piss him off. I mean, sure, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. That crowd's going to help with this being in Mizzou Arena. Maybe there's a formula to this. Call me crazy. I don't know, but I'm excited to see what Mizzou brings. I'm excited to see how Tamar plays in another Kansas game. I'm excited to see what Ant Robinson does. I think there's a lot of benefit to just playing this game for the outlook for me on Mizzou, the rest of Mizzou season. I think there is a lot to be gained, win, lose, or not, or draw. I was going to say win, lose, or draw. You're not going to tie. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Mizzou's going to be shooting for 2 court stormings in a row against Kansas, but I'm excited. Sunday at noon. What's it on? ESPN? I didn't check the TV channel. This is bad promoing of the game.
ESPN2.
ESPN2 at noon. God, Mizzou needs to get good enough again to where that game's on ESPN because it's such a good rivalry. I'm excited for it. We'll see how it goes for Mizzou. I don't want to make us do a prediction because I don't want to be wrong, and I don't want to
Prediction. I still think Missouri winds up losing this game.
Kansas by 13. Kansas by 13, and Mizzou is up with like 16 minutes left, and you're like, wait a minute, and then they just do enough. All right, that'll do it for a packed Mizzou show. You thought our offseason content would slow things down. Au contraire, because we have the number one recruiting expert on our side, and we have hoops to talk about. Enjoy the border war if you're going. I am very, very excited to watch this game, and we'll see how it goes for Mizzou. For the rest of this show, however, we'll finish it up with quick hits. Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish out the show. Jersey of the week up first. Kenny, what's your very Mizzou-esque jersey of the week, good sir?
My jersey of the week goes to Brady Cook, who received back-to-back Scholar Athlete of the Year in the SEC. And we're going to continue on. He was also named to the SEC Football Community Service Team. And Brady Cook is Hula Bowl bound. If you remember the Hula Bowl last year, the thicker kicker was in the Hula Bowl. I don't think he actually ended up going to the Hula Bowl. I think he went into the East-West Shrine Bowl in the end. But Mizzou players have been invited to this in years past, but it's in Orlando in 2025.
Good for Brady. Man, this guy could stand to be a bit less of an overachiever, I'll tell you what. I'm Brady Cook. I'm a 3-year starter at an SEC school that I grew up rooting for. I'm a Scholar Athlete of the Year twice. I'm going to the Hula Bowl with NFL dreams. All right, man. Chill out.
Love the Hula Bowl. Shout out Brady.
Truly take away. I love the Hula Bowl.
I like the just the Hula Bowl. Payton jersey.
My jersey is going to be Johnny Walker, who has just really been a monster these last few weeks. He's had one bad play in like 6 weeks, I swear. He was named co-defensive lineman of the week. Very well deserved. He had 11 tackles as a D lineman.
That is crazy.
1.5 for a loss, 1 sack, and 2 forced fumbles. So Johnny Walker also, I believe he confirmed he's playing in the bowl game in his post-game press conference. So very true son of him. He's got one more game. Let's enjoy it because Johnny Walker the last 2 years has really turned into a damn good player.
Yeah, I remember us being like 3 weeks into the season. We were like, Johnny Walker's been kind of a ghost this year. I think he might have listened. Someone might have showed him the clip because he's been a monster. Where is he? I have not looked at his pro sort of profile overall. I need to start doing that after this season.
I think a day 3 pick, like maybe early day 3. I don't know well enough, but hopefully he gets like a Senior Bowl invite or something.
He will make a team very happy. I love Johnny Walker. My jersey of the week is going to Texas A&M, or soon to be former Texas A&M quarterback Connor Wegman, because the man, the myth, the legend himself, someone who has drawn a lot of buzz, at least from us off the air, is in the transfer portal. And according to some reports, Missouri is a team circling to land the quarterback services, along with the likes of Syracuse, Iowa, Louisville, and Wisconsin. This is going to be a fun saga, I think, for why are you doing air quotes? Why are you doing air quotes?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah, they're fake. This is going to be a fun offseason with some quarterback transfer portal talk. I think I made a list the other day, or a couple weeks ago, of some possible prospects. We're seeing a couple enter the portal. Miller Moss, another one. What's the chatter, Payton? Kenny, what are you guys looking at in the waters for Mizzou future QBs, maybe?
Well, I know Rivals also said that Thomas Castellanos, the Boston College quarterback, has at least heard from Mizzou. Jackson Arnold, he's in the portal. I think that's someone that Mizzou could look at.
What an ironic twist that could be.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know. I mean, it's been pretty well emphasized. Missouri's going to go big game hunting in the portal. A lot of people do not like Connor Wegman. I'll tell you what, I would be pretty happy with Connor Wegman as a portal addition. I think there is just a lot of upside. I think there's 2 years left on him, so you really don't, but it really doesn't matter. You don't have to be tied to him. I mean, if he looks great in year one, awesome. Then Matt Zollers and him can battle it out for the job the year after. If he looks bad, oh well, then you can maybe have just Matt Zollers take the reins. Miller Moss is one. Miller Moss, of the guys that are in the portal, that's one that I would hope Mizzou is the most interested in. 1 year guy. I don't think Mizzou needs a guy with multiple years. I think the goal for them is to kind of have a good bridge QB next year, kind of pass the torch on to Zollers and really like start getting in the hunt for a playoff spot again. I think Miller Moss is more than capable of that. So yeah, it'd be cool to see Wegman. I'd like to see Moss. I don't really think I'd want to see Castellanos. I'm not a huge fan of his. Kind of had an ugly exit from Boston College. I could be talked into Arnold, but I'm not a huge fan of his either, to be honest with you.
We can fix him. It's just the Theo Weiss thing, but at quarterback. We can just fix him. That would, I don't know. I like Wegman. Kenny, you got a quarterback take?
Yeah, I was going to pull up this tweet from MIZ Chris that I saw. It's not loading, but he compared. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is, right on the top, actually. Comparing Bo Nix to Jackson Arnold, believing there's still potential in Jackson Arnold. Bring him to Mizzou.
I love it.
The one thing I'd throw in about
that have won the Elite 11 the last few years.
Arnold, like
Arnold
the thing about Arnold, he averaged like 5.8, I think it was, yards an attempt. That is really, really bad. I know OU's O-line was terrible. I know there were literally games where they were without their top 5 receivers. But man, and Arnold, I mean, we saw it against Mizzou alone. Obviously, you don't want a one-game scout. Otherwise, I would be sprinting to the podium, like pounding the table for Wegman because of what he did against Mizzou. But I mean, Arnold fumbled the ball 3 times against Missouri. And I mean, one of them was like completely unforced. Like, I have a lot of questions about Jackson Arnold, but I could be talked into it. The potential is there. You don't get 5 stars for no reason.
I was going to say, I'll tell you right now, I could definitely be talked into Jackson Arnold. I definitely could be. I like my favorite point for this Mizzou Chris tweet comparing Bo Nix. It just says elite at Oregon. I mean, he was. It's just a funny point. There's no stats to back that up. Just elite at Oregon. So I think the theory there is you put elite at Mizzou. That's where Jackson Arnold slots right in.
Arnold has 2 years left, correct? Or is it 3?
More than that.
I think it's 3 because I think wasn't he a redshirt freshman this year?
Yeah.
I think him and
I don't know. I've
Iamaleava
seen
are
people
the
say
same.
both, so I'm not for sure.
I think it's 3.
3 seems to make the most sense.
Yeah,
he's a redshirt freshman this year.
Yeah, I would think it would be 3 then. Yeah,
it'd be 3. All right, we'll see. Yeah, that's going to be a topic of discussion for the goings forward the coming weeks.
Like no capping, he's the main bird.
Mr. Sean, East Main Bird of the Week. Kenny.
Sean East Main Bird of the Week. I couldn't find a connection to a bird, but Brody Bohm is flying away. So you're just
throwing a non-bird on here?
He's flying away.
He's flying away.
Bird. Everyone go to the
Mizzou after one season as a reserve kicker. Farewell, Brody Bohm.
Brody Bohm. There
how about
you go.
this? If Brody Bohm doesn't sign his next letter of intent with a school that has a bird mascot, I will quit this podcast forever.
Oh, please don't.
No,
sign.
I don't think
Please
we have
don't
to
sign
hold
with
you
the
to
bird
that.
team. Please don't sign with a bird team.
I don't think we're going to enforce that.
Brody Bohm was the first Mizzou player to openly announce his intentions to enter the transfer portal this upcoming week on December 9th. The other, also on special teams, punter Ryan Phillips, who came in from Murray State, did not play this season.
Yeah, really great stuff there from Lynx units.
Terrible. Bird, Payton, do you have a real
My
bird?
main bird of the week is going to be Purdue offensive lineman Mohamed Musa. I believe I'm saying that right. Mohamed Musa. He played mostly guard this year for Purdue. He's entered the portal, and he is going to go on a visit to Mizzou. We don't have an exact date, but Kenny can confirm that. My connection to a bird is that he's also reportedly going to take a visit to Louisville. And Louisville, of course.
hardly better than Kenny's.
No, Louisville is
Bird.
a bird, and he's visiting a bird.
Okay.
That's better than flying away with no bird connection.
Yeah, but not
he's
by
connected
much.
to a bird. He's been connected to a bird.
All right.
He was recruited by Jeff Brom, who is now the head coach at Louisville. So that's a logical fit. And I'll be honest, looking at this guy's PFF grades, I'm okay if Mizzou doesn't really get this guy. I'll be honest with you. He gave up like 25 pressures, I believe it was, which was the most on the team. Maybe good depth, but I don't think that's a guy I'd be comfortable with starting.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at his PFF yet, but Payton gave me a bad review, and I usually just listen to what Payton says because his word is law in the Mizzou transfer portal world. He's our Trilly Donovan. Anyway, my Shawnee's main bird of the week is Brett Bielema. Connection to a bird. He started his coaching career at Iowa, the Hawkeyes. So there you go. Bird connection, a real one. Anyway, Brett Bielema in the last couple of days has been going to bat championing Illinois. He's been quote tweeting Lane Kiffin, who has been tweeting about Ole Miss being in the college football playoff. And he's done this twice now. He has two separate tweets where he's quote tweeted Lane Kiffin with stats that Illinois' strength of schedule is better than Illinois, or is Illinois' strength of schedule is better than Ole Miss, excuse me. And I just love this. I appreciate Brett Bielema for his advocation for the Fighting Illini to be in the playoff. I love the campaign season that this happens. Not that Illinois has any prayer of making the playoff, but I just love that Brett Bielema. I didn't think he was this Twitter savvy, so good for him.
I don't love it. Know your role, Illinois. We don't want you in.
There's the other tweet.
They're going.
I couldn't agree. Lane Kiffin tweeted an article, and the headline that he tweeted said Lane Kiffin pushes for Ole Miss for college football playoff. Brett Bielema said, "I couldn't agree more." At Lane Kiffin, you're spot on. Appreciate all you're doing to keep this information going. Here are a few more things comparing Illinois football to you guys at Ole Miss with Clemson and the U. And it's just a chart of the strength of schedule and the records.
Okay, nobody's arguing Clemson should be in, so no, like get that out of there. The only way they'd be in is winning the ACC. Miami
talking about it.
Miami is 10-2, so that's better than Ole Miss and Illinois. I think that does matter a little bit. It doesn't matter. These are 4 teams that are all not going to make it at large.
That's why it's the best.
Like this beef sucks.
That's why it's the best thing because you look at it and you're like, wait, this is stupid. And then you're like, oh, wait, actually, I'll talk about it. No, this is stupid again. It suckers you in. It's Brett Bielema.
I just hopefully SMU just wins or loses to Clemson and keeps Alabama out and people can just not be that angry.
Oh, people will be angry. People will be angry no matter what.
Alabama should not get in over a team that made their conference title game with 11 wins. That shouldn't be controversial to anybody, but
we'll have CFP talk on Sunday or on Monday after the final things come out. So stay tuned. But there you go. Brett Bielema is already firing Payton up. It's working. Best thing you learned, Payton?
Best thing I learned this will be the second straight week Drew Lock makes a start for this for the New York Giants. I almost said San Francisco Giants again. Tommy DeVito is limited at practice. Drew Lock scored 20 points for the Giants, which might as well be 80 the way they've been playing. So Drew Lock will get another shot in the saddle.
Yes. Give him a chance. His offensive line is terrible. That is why I'm attributing him being not good against the Cowboys.
In my senior year of high school, someone wrote an article for our school magazine, didn't have a newspaper anymore. And I think it was along the lines of that the Giants were a left guard away from beating the Chiefs.
I remember this. Wow. I remember you telling me this at least, because I've heard that sentence before.
Love it.
It was so
Daniel
close.
Jones is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Speaking of guys that play similar to Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield lost a bet with Bucs team reporter Casey Phillips, and as a result, is donning this Mizzou hoodie. If you're watching with us on the YouTube, I'll retweet it as well if you're not, and so you can go see it on our Twitter account.
Grandma.
But good photos here saying Mizzou Grandma was the hoodie that Baker Mayfield donned.
I love it. I can't wait to have this image.
Baker Mayfield went to OU. That's what the rivalry was over.
I hope
Yeah.
people listening to this show know that. I would
hope most people are aware of
I
him.
think grandmother probably doesn't know.
Oh, wait, yeah. Sorry, Grandma. I forgot. You probably don't know that. Baker Mayfield played for Oklahoma. Oklahoma is rivals with Missouri. So
we have to appreciate our lone commenter. Yeah. Shout out. I do love bets like this. I love when they have to post, like, you see it with like Alabama, Auburn a lot, different rivalries, Ohio State, Michigan. It's always funny. And I'm like, this is like, it's not at the level, but this is like the one photo of Drake in the Mizzou pullover. Like, to just have a photo of Baker Mayfield in Mizzou gear is just funny. No matter if he went to Oklahoma or not, it's just like a random, kind of celeb donning
Adam
stuff.
Sandler in a Missouri shirt.
Yeah. Yep. There's the Adam Sandler one. There's so many good ones. So you add Baker Mayfield to the list. So I do love that for him. There's not really an easy way to transition off of this, but I wanted to talk about this on the show. This is a sharp left turn in subject matter here, but we're a Mizzou podcast, we're an SEC podcast, and there was some news that it's super, super sad to hear, and I wanted to talk about it and dedicate some time to it at the end of the show. The SEC lost one of its best beat reporters, one of the nicest people, just on the SEC beat, Bob Holt, a longtime Arkansas Democrat Gazette reporter. He passed away, and I think the three of us, we come from the MUJ school. Bob Holt did as well. We knew colleagues that knew him very well, and it's just it was super, super sad news, and I've seen a lot of really great stuff already written about it on Thursday. I just wanted to, give our condolences there to him. Everyone I would hear talk about him just said he was the nicest person ever, was a longtime Arkansas beat writer. And it's just, just really, really sad to see. I met Bob one time. I was at SEC Media Days for men's basketball this year, was introduced to him, and I'll remember that interaction for a while. He was just super kind. We talked about Mizzou. I grew up in Wisconsin. Bob lived there for a while. We talked about that. I'm on the Alabama beat now, and every time Arkansas would play Alabama, Bob would ask Nate Oates, a fellow Wisconsin native, about the Green Bay Packers, and they had just a goofy little bit about that. And so I just wanted to, take a minute and appreciate Bob, as three of us who came from the J School who are writers, and he was a guy who clearly touched a lot of lives of a lot of SEC people, a lot of people we know. And so our thoughts are with Bob. It's super, super sad to see, and really nice here from the SEC. If you're watching on the YouTube, the SEC did a post about him. And we love to see that as well. And just our condolences to him and his family. Super sad news. No easy way to talk about it, but I appreciated getting to know Bob. I know people knew him way longer than I did, but yeah, super sad news to see that he had passed.
I never got to meet Bob. Probably shared a press conference, or not press conference, but a press box at one point when Arkansas played Mizzou in football. But one thing I always remember is I was the teleconference guy on the beat for the 2022 Mizzou football season at the Missourian. And every single time I would listen, like, Drinkwitz was ready. He was ready for Bob Holt to ask him a question. He asked like everybody questions. He just had something to ask. And with Drinkwitz being an Arkansas guy, I think there was a good connection there. And Drinkwitz put out something this morning saying that he was very saddened to hear the news. True son through and through. When people talk this much about it, they lived a good life. And for someone that didn't know him personally, didn't know him well, really at all, I can tell a lot of people loved him.
I was really struck by the amount of coaches that had something to say. Coach Cal had a really long quote in his post game against Miami about him. Gus Malzahn tweeted something because obviously at Auburn he would have had a lot of interactions with Bob. So seems like he was just well liked by not everyone, just the media, but coaches as well. And that's a rare thing that does not happen often. So very, very sad.
I'll end it on a fun note. There are some just great moments with Bob. Like Kenny said, always ask some great questions. He once asked Nick Saban basically if he can control the weather, because Nick, as soon as he arrived at SEC Media Days, it apparently stopped raining. So he asked him, and he could make Nick Saban smile, which is, I'm sure, no mean feat. And he had some good interactions with Coach Cal. I know, it was I think at one point Cal like at a thing was just like, why do you talk so much about Arkansas? And Bob was just like, why do you talk so much about Kentucky? That's of course when Cal was still there. So just in being new on the SEC beat, but being at things and seeing him around, even I learned of the lore of Bob Holt, and that's just like Kenny said, it speaks to his reach and his influence and the people he touched in his life. So yeah, definitely sending our condolences to the Arkansas beat as well. We know some people who cover that team, and they're super sad whether they worked with him or just were on the beat with him. It's an important thing to appreciate his legacy. So tough note to end on. But I think it's appreciative. I think we do the things we do because we love sports in the same way that Bob did, and we love the SEC in the same way that Bob did. So that's why we do it. And our condolences are with him. That'll wrap up the unwritten rule. Big show for you guys that we had this week. Big game against Kansas on Sunday. We'll recap it. We'll talk some college football playoff, like we said, in quick hits, just for the heck of it. If there's any late drama with the Clemson, SMU, Bama situation, maybe Brett Bielema's calls will be answered. Illinois sneaks into the playoff. Wouldn't that be a sicko thing? Anyway, that'll wrap it up. Enjoy the border war if you're watching, if you're going. It was very, very fun to be at. I wish I could be at it, but I will look forward to watching it on the television noon Sunday, high noon. And we'll recap it on Sunday. See you next time.